So let's talk about constraints next. Over in our controller, let's create a third call. In this case, I'm going to call get, but use a string so that I can use the name of foods or users, which may be a little clearer than using the get with the number. It's the same functionality, it's just using a different way to do those lookups. So let's go ahead and add a route, and I'm going to use the same override I did before, stat, but this time I'm going to use name because the name of the parameter is name. These have to match for it to know how to match them up. It's not doing it by order, it's doing it by the name of the parameter. So that's important that they match. So by adding this new get, we should be able to come here and say foods. And we get an error. This error says that more than one actions were found that match the request because it can't differentiate which of those two controllers to go after. This is a fairly common problem where you have two methods on a controller that are similar enough that it's hard for Web API to determine which route is correct. And so here where you can use constraints. Constraints are added inside of the parameter, and then they're added as after a colon. So in this case, we can say alpha. In other words, the value we're looking for is going to be an alpha value, and then inside the ID, we can say we expect this to be an integer because it is an integer. Both these cases, we're using very specific constraints to define which of these to match. This is, in essence, giving them more information in order to do the match. So now if we go to foods, we're getting that match. And user should also work, but also we still have the 1 and the 2 that should continue to work, because we're calling those second methods. So in this way, you can use those constraints to determine that. There's actually a wide variety of these constraints. There's ones for length, for maximum, minimum length. There's even a regular expression constraint so that you can supply regular expression to match against it. And this can be really useful for when you're doing things like slugs and blogs to make sure that the regular expression is matched for the parameter after a certain API call. If there's more than one of these, if we had 2 parameters, we could certainly do this as well. And it would go ahead and use this as a second parameter called date. So you can have more than one parameter inside of a route, just like in regular ASP.NET Web API.